Go ahead.
Yeah, I think what I'm struggling with is this is a very short perspective of
Yes.
reactionary change, and stability very often is a very small period of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this sort of infers that job done, move on, which of course is not reality.
What I'm trying to reflect there, though, is a lot of times organizations suppress change.
Yeah.
To force it into what might be apparent stability, only until the pressure builds to the point where they have to make the change. What I'm thinking of doing here is maybe making that a dotted line for stability, and then also where I've got the restraining forces against change, duplicate that up at the top.
Yeah. Because very often the stability is a perception based on abandoning the original. What do I mean by that? Very often, very seldom is the change completed when it's a disruptive change, because they're dealing with symptoms rather than the real thing. And then this is why we get these crazy statistics about change not being achieved. It's because they're typically reacting to pressure based on symptoms. And so the stability ends up as a perception that job done, which of course it's not, which then causes the next disruption. And I think that's one of the big differences about that and continuous change.
Okay, let me play with this a little bit.
I mean, what do you think, Adriana? Am I looking at it in a too complex way, or?
No. I agree with what you say. Is you have this perceived stability, but you're always in these ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. So what if you just called it perceived stability instead of stability? Would that explain it better?
It's certainly getting nearer to the reality. Whether people understand what that means from a diagram, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But will this be a diagram that supports narrative within the book that you guys are writing?
Yeah, this is part of an introduction I'm trying to put together.
Because it could be explained in the text, and then the diagram could just be like a supporting what am I trying to say? A supporting visualization.
Yeah, I mean, what Ross has been trying to do while he's playing around with that, what he's been trying to do with several other areas is self-explanatory diagrams. Because one of the problems we have in most books is the diagram only tells half the story, and you have to rely on the text to describe it. And then the readers tend to, particularly senior management, pick up the diagrams and go with those without understanding what they really mean. And so it's sort of two roles in one, I think, here. Okay. Maybe that stability is more pressure for stability.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to get to is that it's artificially created stability.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm playing with things here a little bit. Okay, something to that effect. Do you see what I'm showing on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, what I'm trying to reflect is that the stability is there, but it's really not. It's more of a perception or a well, it's more than just perceived. It's really of a artificially constrained.
Yeah. Because where you've got change pressure on the first part,
Right.
the pressure at the new stability is the pressure to revert to normality.
Is that getting closer?
It's going in the direction.
Okay.
I think what makes it more difficult is because it's just one stage from one step to another.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas usually this is a series of steps when you show this in a diagram.
Yes. Yeah. I know what you're saying, but I don't know how to.
Because this perception or this artificial constraining, this perception of stability is then kicks off another disruption because there's pressure to either complete the change or to deal with the next symptom.
Yeah. Okay.
Could you expand the diagram a little bit to show what Reg just said? So you get to this.
I'm running out of space to get everything in one page. I'm trying to keep these simple to one page.
Okay.
And that's part of the challenge that I'm playing with, is how do you get a lot of critical information that somewhat stands alone and at the same time makes sense.
Well, I mean, for me, the only way really here is to do it on a slightly smaller scale, so you have at least a second stage.
Yeah. Okay. Artificially constrained until released.
Yeah, and then that gives you the next disruption.
Right. Okay, let me do one more thing.
Because this is one of the complaints of episodic change, that it seldom deals with reality, unless it's something basic like introducing a new IT system. But even then, that's treated as episodic change, but that's normal business today.
Right.
Yeah. And the organization needs to have the appropriate people set up in order for people to understand that it's a normal business.
Right. Okay, I'm still playing with it. Okay. What if I should change this? Okay, something like that. Trying to give an impression of it continuing beyond the current stability.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's better than it was, but I mean, that's better.
Could you put a little bubble, maybe like right above the arrows, and say that points to the red dotted line, and it says next disruption, or something to that effect?
Yeah.
To just explain what those might be.
Okay, let me give me a second here.
Move your blue speech bubble up and to the left. That's it. Which then comes down there. Then you've got a room underneath to show something for the red uplift.
Okay.
Just copy paste what you've done on the artificial constraint. Saves you a lot of time and effort. Just copy paste it and then change the color and move it down. So that's it. Click on there, copy paste, move it down. Okay, then play around with it. You can either keep the same color or change it. But having spent many hours on Keynote and PowerPoint, I can give you every shortcut.
Something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to be continued means, but
Yeah.
I mean, you can play with the words there.
I'm trying to say, or next disruption.
Yeah.
Okay. Getting closer.
I mean, for me, it looks better now than it
Okay.
did with the earlier one.
Okay.
What do you think, Adriana?
I'm thinking maybe the diagram could have a title, like.
Well, okay. Here's where it fits. So the lower part over here is actually the image that I copied in. So I'm going to replace this image here. This image now is going to be replaced.
Yeah.
What if where it says reactionary change in bold, after that in parentheses you put treating the symptoms?
See where are you at?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the main diagram that you have up in the PowerPoint. Yeah.
Oh, okay, up here. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So if after reactionary change in parentheses you put treating the symptoms.
Yeah.
And then proactive change.
Okay.
Maybe it's more symptoms driven rather than focus on symptoms, because the focus could be on many things, but the driver usually are the symptoms.
Okay.
Add an S after at the end of symptoms.
I'm sorry, say again.
Not add an S
Oh.
at the end of symptom. Not to be too picky, but
Yeah.
just as a proofreading kind of thing.
More than one. More than one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ross, I'm fascinated. You've shown the leadership as vision focus.
Yes. This gets back to the difference between change management and change leadership. Change management focuses on the change process. Change leadership focuses on the change vision.
Do they focus on the vision or the objectives?
Um,
The only reason I ask that is very often this is one of the problems. Each leader of each function has a different set of objectives, and they lose focus on the overall purpose.
when you get into Cotter, it's vision.
Okay.
Yeah, the thinking of change leadership comes out of Cotter's approach, saying change leadership is better than change management. And he focuses.
Yeah, I agree that in principle that's very true, because we would put, instead of vision focus, purpose focus, which is in his world the same.
Right.
But in reality, they tend to focus more on their objectives
Um,
as opposed to the overall vision.
that's the breakdown in alignment. Okay. I know what you're saying, because that's where you get into fragmentation.
Yeah, and this is why the collaboration gets lost, and they
Right.
deal with the symptoms rather than the overall problems.
Okay. Are we moving?
Just something to think about. Something to think about.
uh, I agree with you, but I think we're moving past this stage of the concept flow.
Okay.
A question though, Regs.
Hmm.
I added the change maturity here.
Yeah.
And the portfolio projects and institutionalized comes right out of several change maturity frameworks.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, okay, what if I wanted to do change maturity down here? And I struggled a bit for what I would have down here, other than principle driven and routine adaptation, but I'm not sure I'm hitting the target of what change maturity there really is. Without trying to add more detail at this level.
What can you just help me with what you mean by change maturity?
It goes back.
Might be an English American issue.
Okay, this gets back into ProSci and several other frameworks. There's like 3-4 different frameworks of change maturity, and they come at it a little bit different. But basically, the ProSci one comes at a level 1 of having no change process in place. The level 2 somehow like gets the ADKAR change process in place, and then moves into an organization-wide understanding of change to eventually a standardized change process. And then finally, that becomes an institutionalized way of doing routine business. So they're basically levels of how well change is understood across the organization and put into practice.
I mean, I wonder if people reading it would understand that. I'm just wondering whether instead of the word maturity, something like change approach or approach to change.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, now you've explained what you meant. It makes sense to me totally.
Okay.
But because I've read that stuff, but it wouldn't, I think, for most people.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's a simplistic word, change approach, but it actually, I think, captures the essence of change maturity that you're trying to capture.
Okay. And then I was going to follow this up with more information about change maturity, but then again, I could open it with change approach and then introduce change maturity as a concept. Okay. Okay. That makes better sense on the bottom than two.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you say routine adaptation, I'm just challenging my own thoughts here.
Okay.
Because for me, if you're using change as your business model, then it's constant adaptation. Or it's an ongoing, because routine almost sounds as if it's a sort of a cycle thing.
Yeah, no, you're right. Routine is how you think of it. Constant is what it is.
Yeah.
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 Okay. No, that works. Okay, much improved.
Tatiana, what do you think?
I like the changes. I don't think I have as much change management knowledge as the both of you, so I don't know if I could speak as an expert. I like the changes because, as you said, Reg, somebody who doesn't really understand, because I haven't read any ProSci or ADKAR, so as someone who has not read that, this makes more sense to me.
Yeah, and that's why if you don't mind me using the term, but your naivety in change is an asset
No.
here.
Yeah, no, that's right, because this is
No.
this is targeting the manager who is forced into doing change, but he doesn't really want to,
Okay.
which is, probably many hundreds of thousands of millions of people worldwide that's having to struggle through change.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Okay. So is this going to be like a large textbook type of book, or is it going to be kind of an ebook guide that people can use, or is that not fleshed out yet?
This is twofold. This is taking many of the concepts that Reg and I have been working on and trying to simplify them into standalone concepts. And then at the same time, build images that can be used in other documents. So while I'm working on this, Reg is doing some other writing.
Okay.
And we're basically coming at it from two perspectives. One is conceptual with images, and the other is more of a contextual text itself that can lean on the basic underlying concepts, but also then use the same underlying images. So that's why I'm preparing the images down here in the lower part, because these can then be reused in other places.
Okay.
So really, it's coming up with two end products at opposite ends of the spectrum itself.
Okay.
I call it CBM, Comics for Busy Managers.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's kind of what I'm trying to fight with. And it gets into a lot of the questions I keep asking because I don't have the answer, is how do the people who need to know this find out what they don't know? And how can they look at something and understand, not all of it, but understand enough to know that they need to know more, and then have links to go into more?
I agree, and that's exactly what I'm doing with my current client, and that's why I said I didn't mean it in a negative sense. I think comics for busy managers is appropriate.
No,
It's
yeah,
how
and
we
that's why-
do it to a point of support, so that they don't have too little or too much.
right. And the whole idea here is that they don't have a lot of time. I want to be able to grab their attention quickly with an image, and the image gives enough of information to pull them in to read a little bit of text around it to make more sense.
Yeah. Let me see, just 1 second.
Okay.
No, I thought I had it to hand. I'll show you next time. I've got a book on marketing, which is a comic book for marketing that
Okay.
tells the story of 2 ice cream sellers, and all the principles of marketing as they were at that time. The world's
Okay.
moved on since then, and it's a really good example of how powerful it is.
Yeah. I'd like to see that, because again, I've always struggled somewhat with images, so this is forcing me to rethink things a little bit myself.
The second image, you've probably seen my comment on that one.
I probably haven't. Okay.
Okay, I've not been very kind.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the other reason I understand what you're saying, cumulative, and that they could be independent, and not necessarily cumulative. Assumes somewhat of a linearity of building a change too.
Yeah, and it reminded me very much of the traditional episodic intermittent
Yeah.
delivery of major change. So that, I was just wondering whether, if you're looking at change as part of a business model, then rather than the cumulative access, there should be something about the organization's effectiveness, because that's what the change is trying to achieve. And so each of those continual changes should increase the effectiveness of the organization's ability to operate.
Okay. I misunderstood cumulative. Okay.
Because you've got the cumulative in the traditional sense, is the way I read it.
Yeah.
But
You're
we're
right.
really now looking at the effectiveness of the organization.
Yeah.
I mean, in the first direction, that one's okay, because that's the traditional one. That's the traditional one.
I'm sorry. I'm doing the wrong one. I'm doing the wrong
But
one.
the second diagram, here, then for me, this is more about something about the organization's ability.
Okay. And that makes another distinction in between the two charts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
and I think it's an important one to show.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Okay.
I mean, I really don't know at the moment what that measurement should be. I just put a very quick idea here, something about the organization's relevance within its operating environment, because that's what it's trying to maintain, its relevance and success. And
I'm not following where you're at.
on the website,
Okay.
I've put an example on there. I mean, I really do challenge this diagram, because I think you're showing it going up as you would in the traditional sense. But if it is constant change, then it's horizontal.
Yeah.
Unless you really, really rethink the idea of the two axes.
Yeah.
This is what makes this one a challenge.
Yeah, it's a challenge because I'm trying to compare and contrast two items, and that requires some similar dimensions of comparison.
Yeah, but at the moment, it looks like a traditional incremental change diagram.
Yes. Okay, is that something I could footnote here and then build into another conceptual page later?
I'm not sure we could design it live now,
Yeah.
because it's going to take some thought. But I really, really don't think that diagram represents what you're trying to show. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be a curve, it could be a linear, a straight line. If it's effectuation, it could be going in all sorts of directions. So it really depends on the method they're using for constant change.
Yeah. I'm also missing the concurrent changes too.
And that's my point.
And the parallel changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
And
this is a systems change in the whole network. And that's a real big difference, because episodic tends to, not exclusively, but tends to focus in one part of the organization. A new customer sales process or whatever. Whereas with constant change. The idea of the network is what you change at the interface with the customer ripples throughout the organization as part of the process.
Okay, if I were to redo the chart, okay, I can do away with all stability and add multiple change lines, some being concurrent, some being sequential, some being parallel, all moving in the direction of effectiveness. But show it as a show it as it's not necessarily a mess of change, but a mass of multiple changes occurring, somewhat linked, some not. Yeah.
I think you need to break away from that whole linearity.
Well, okay, the linearity is tied to time though.
Yeah, I'm okay with the timeline.
Okay.
Let me just bear with me a
Okay.
second.
Oh, go ahead.
See if I can find it. Yeah, I'm struggling to find it in time. I've got, where are we?
Can I show you both a very
Yeah,
crude
sure.
drawing that I just did?
Okay, let me stop the share.
I actually I don't have it on my computer. I
Oh,
drew it
okay.
in my notebook here, but
Okay,
I'll hold it up to the camera and hopefully you'll be able to see it. But
okay.
is this somewhat where you're trying to go?
Yeah, well, I was going to go in that with a lot of shorter lines, still going at an upward angle.
Okay.
I mean, that's one way of doing it.
Yeah.
I would. I'm frustrated. I can't find this thing. Bear with me. I must find it. It's here. I was thinking more that either underneath the timeline as opposed to above it, underneath the timeline are a number of cycles of different sizes that are bringing about change simultaneously. Let me just think, hang on, I might have it here. No, it's not what I wanted.
Are you?
No, I haven't got it.
Are you adding a little bit of a feedback loop to it then too?
Well, yeah. What I'll do is I'm trying to find one that I'm working on with a client at the moment in a different context, but I think it would be ideal as a starting point for what you're trying to do here. Okay. So what I'll do is I will get a copy of it tonight and I will send you the slide. All right. To give you an idea. It's a different visual. Maybe I can do what Adriana's done, but I must go to my client. Let's turn this over.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know whether you can see this.
Yeah.
So over time, you have different areas undergoing different changes at a different speed. And in some way, they have to be linked together in order for the network to make sense of them. And it's that dynamism that is missing.
Let me make another pass at it. Yeah, I understand the feedback, the connectivity, but then that adds a third dimension to the image too. Yeah. Okay.
And I think that is a crucial difference in this approach compared with the linearity of the traditional one. So maybe we're looking now, just thoughts.
Yeah.
In your diagrammatic approach, you have two sets of diagrams, one showing this linear view,
right,
and with the different elements in parallel with each other in a classic sort of Gantt chart, compared with the constant change, which is this cyclic process of interconnectedness.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to, that second chart, I duplicated that, so I'm not going to lose it. And then I'm going to modify, because we may need to go back to it at some time.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm just saying, not use, hold for possible use in the future. Okay. Okay. Let me play with it. I understand it's not necessarily feedback loops, but feed forward loops.
Yeah. I mean, you've got this classic sort of scan, act, do, and all this sort of cycle that's going on in different sizes. Some will be minor changes, some will be big, but they're all interrelated.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because I want to show some branching change, some parallels change, some sequential change, and some that will have feed forward into a future time period because they enable new things. One change may enable something else to change in the future, not necessarily immediately recognized. Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I could add that without adding too much complexity or confusing at this level. Okay. Okay. Much approved.
Good. Well, I'm going to have to go because I've got to prepare for this meeting with the client group, and that will be with me till 7 o'clock tonight, probably. So I'm going to wish cheers for now and let you two carry on and discuss things. And I'll send you a copy of that as soon as I got it handy. And I'll copy some pages from this marketing one and send you those just so you get an idea of how it works.
Okay. Yeah.
It's quite a powerful book.
Okay. Yeah. Let me take a look at both of those and we'll modify, and I'll put it either on the network or we could talk in more detail on Tuesday then too.
Yep. Okay. We'll do. Take care.
Very good.
All right.
Bye. Bye, Reg.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay, Adriana, okay, I've got two other questions that I had out there on the discussions for Thursday.
Oh, okay.
And they're both interrelated. One is focused to the change consultants that are already doing change that may want to use more of the Futocracy principles in practice. And the other is tied to the charts we were just talking about, and that what do leaders and managers need to know? Okay. From your perspective, okay, what more would you like to know, or do you think that people would need to know to understand more of what Reg and I are doing? Because we're going at multiple levels. You know, we're going at a very high academic level, and we're also trying to pull it back to simplistic. And we want to know, are we hitting the simplistic in a way that you and others who may not have the depth of knowledge can still come up to speed efficiently?
Is it possible to give a brief explanation of the change model that you're basing the information on?
Okay. Let me, give me 1 second here.
I don't know if brief is, because I did look at when I was in school, I did a paper on Cotter's 8 steps.
Right.
But that's not easily explained in just a couple paragraphs or even some bullet points. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Let me pull up something over. Let me show you the outline that I've got now.
Okay.
Okay, you should be seeing my screen now. Okay, we've got a couple approaches. What's in here in the Futocracy Articles Network, this started out as an ebook that we're kind of just throwing stuff into. And we continue to populate this as we get things. But the flow here is we want to talk initially about how work is changing in general. That then leads into looking at project management, because a lot of times change is put within the framework of project management. Then we flip it though into questioning, are we really talking about organizational change or organization design? That then lays into alternate forms of control. Okay, and that will have a number of different things about control, some of which have not yet been written because we're still working on. So for example, one of the things that Reg and I are reading now is actually a 2003 book that came out of the US Armed Forces that I'm not sure exactly when it was declassified, but it's actually written in 2003, which gets into some great analysis of command and control. Okay. Then we're going to get into an introduction to Futocracy. This gets into a lot of things, rethinking the assumptions we have, different frameworks are in place, rethinking of change as a business model, even the circular economy there. Then what are the searches for alternate designs? And this is a collection of some that we've already done. Cotter's dual operating system, sociocracy, holacracy, new core, a couple others that aren't listed here, which are basically different designs that get away from the traditional command and control hierarchy. None of them are without problems. And to a large extent, Futocracy is a synthesis across many of these, looking at the commonalities and addressing the deficiencies. So for example, the dual operating system that Cotter has some really great networking ideas that we're building on, but to a large extent, they're secondary as a shadow system without changing the primary system. So, I mean, Cotter's heading in the right direction here, but he did it as a lightly add-on without really thinking of the traditional hierarchy and the disadvantages there of, can you eliminate some of that versus patching it? So he did kind of a backside patch. Sociocracy, Holacracy does a great job in basically distributed decision-making, but they change the slowness of a traditional bureaucracy for a very high learning curve and a great burden of documentation of their decision-making process. So while it is efficient in the decision-making itself, it comes with a very high learning curve, which is a difficulty in transitioning to the model. It also is a difficulty of onboarding new employees.
Mm.
And the burden, for example, holacracy and is a part of sociocracy. Sociocracy is open standards, and each individual consultant has a slight variation of it. And one of those actually has a resource library of 300 documents, at least 300. That's when I stopped
Oh
counting.
my gosh.
And I said, I get blown away. There's so much in there that I don't have, for the life of me, know how anyone figures it out. And that's where they basically step in and help guide organizations to that variation of sociocracy. But it's a terrible high learning curve. And because of that burden, even the decision-making process is high documentation. So the decisions may be made quickly because you've got a lot of people involved, but it requires a lot of people to be involved. And you do a lot of documentation for those who aren't involved. Really burdensome. Then I'm going to start breaking down into the organizing principles, and then the 3 levels of work, purpose alignment, network weaver, and then the top side. And then some things of implementation. And then this is where I was trying to figure out of what are the essentials.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough there, but what do people need as desktop references so they don't have to keep going back to all the detail? This started as an ebook, and we continue to throw things out there, but we're no longer trying to figure out the logics and fill the gap in a determined way. We're basically working on individual articles that strike our fancy and then throwing them in here as a repository. Similarly, some of the videos that we've done, we've put into a video library that many times runs parallel to the other things we've done on the articles. These are, again, bits and pieces we're capturing that may be repurposed into a course later. The course itself could be video and some of the articles. And then the Surviving the Change to SAMI is kind of what I'm thinking of, the more of a graphical version. So Reg is doing a lot of the deeper articles, and I critique those, but then I take concepts from the deeper articles and break them into conceptuals. So for example, here, the introduction to the challenges that we face. And part of what I'm doing is going to fit within there. Maybe success stories, fight against bureaucracy. Talk about control, how some of the organizations have redone their thinking about control. Design principles, then how change is changing, and then basically, again, the getting the work done, purpose alignment, network weaving, the top side strategy, direction, implementation, and again, try to summarize it into just a couple. And again, this is a rough framework that as I put ideas together, I'm going to be throwing them into this structure and then moving them around.
Okay.
So the question that comes is looking at a framework here of individual standalone concepts. So for example, let me come down here. Here's the principle-driven organizational change. Okay, so the idea here then is to have a title, an image, similar to what we've done before, showed today, a standalone image that then comes down to videos. So for example, any of the other videos that may have been used elsewhere, I can edit that part that's pertinent and put it in here, followed by links. This will be a linear table of contents, but the concepts themselves will obviously be linked in multiple directions. So as content is added that is relevant here, links will be to other content. So someone who's reading the book can be jumping all around the book without having to actually read the book linearly.
Okay.
And then a PDF of the image. So this is an image here that, the way the structure is here, the image appears right up front. But the PDF then is an attachment. And because I'm trying to keep the image as simple as possible, I'm putting very few references and citations in here, only as absolutely necessary, but I'm capturing the references down here with other links.
Okay.
So that's kind of the structure that I'm doing. So it will basically be flowing from image into any video that may have been done as part of a webinar. And again, some of these might be an hour webinar, but only 10 or 15 minutes may be pertinent to this particular slide. So that's edited out. Cross-content linkages, a PDF if someone wants to print it versus the image. And then again, the academic side. And again, these go back to some of the other things that Reg and I have done that are documented. And part of this is, we've gotten so much information, we get lost in it sometimes. And this allows us to identify where things are, which is not only online, but then also linked to a little bit of a better understanding where we have it on our PCs.
Okay. So I'm thinking that before I answer your question,
Okay.
it might be helpful for me to look over
Okay.
some of these things and then I could tell you maybe where I'm getting stuck or what I don't understand.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. I got to think through here. Okay, I'm going to probably have to unhide a few things. So for example, I'm looking at it from the author's point of view.
Okay.
And this particular chapter here is hidden. You see that little image there? That's
Oh,
hidden.
yeah.
Okay, I need to unhide the chapter heading, but leave this hidden. Same here. So for example, I've started to work on control here. I basically have something is a placeholder, but I need to go back and actually unhide the chapter headings. So for example, if you were to look at it, all you would see is the preference about the authors, about the ebook, nothing in 1, 2, and you'd see 3 with 3 parts, 2 parts of 3 there. So let me unhide a few things so you could see a little bit more of the structure.
Okay.
Okay, and this is right now behind a paywall, but it's an artificial paywall, just because I don't want people in it.
Yeah.
But
well, are you comfortable with me doing that?
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't want to.
No problem at all. No problem
Okay.
at all. It's just not really ready for full viewing. So what I'm doing with the image that we played with today is that Reg and I have been working on them. And what you experienced today is basically a typical session that Reg and I go through, challenging, modifying, Once I do that, then I'm going to post it out on the Futocracy network in one of the topics that's open discussion. I'll probably post it then also in some LinkedIn groups, not so much for the comments, but for the marketing to pull people into Futocracy network.
Okay.
And then after that feedback, formalize it and post it out here. But it's still a work in process. So for example, this
Mhm.
image here, I've modified this a couple times since it actually went live. So a few quick modifications will allow me to basically update this particular page, and this becomes basically the production version of it, and the other versions of it are interim work in process views that I don't worry about trying to keep updated.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, what I'm looking for is, does it make sense? And I'm trying to target the person who doesn't know where Reg and I have been going, but at the same time needs to know more about organizational change to be effective in their job.
Okay.
And then there's a secondary audience, and that is the change consultant who is full-time employed either as an internal or an external consultant, but they're dealing primarily with a traditional methodology and traditional viewpoint of organizational change, but would like or needs to rethink their approach to change for some clients in some situations. And what can we give them to enlarge their thinking?
Okay.
Okay. And you've got, let me see here. Let me come back here. The subgroup, Autocracy subgroup. Okay. This free resources in the Autocracy subgroup here.
Uh-huh.
These are the free links to what would otherwise be behind a paywall.
Okay.
But I'll go ahead and add them as replies to some of the discussions that I've got started.
Okay.
Okay. Anything you'd like to discuss today?
No, I don't think so. I think if I kind of read through those items, I can have a better understanding of
Okay.
how to help you and Reg
Okay.
from my perspective of not having a strong change background, but wanting one.
Okay. Okay. And again, the structure we have is that anything Reg and I do, we put the other as a co-author. So if I take the lead of it, I'll be the author, he'll be the co-author, and vice versa.
Okay.
We're welcome to do the same with others if you want to get involved with anything in more detail.
Oh, okay.
So it makes it easier for us in that we do joint authorship, but we also know who's the lead person for it. And
Okay.
the other person basically gives feedback. And the feedback oftentimes is the old 80-20. We focus on the most critical things. When it gets to a final stage, then we might go like a 95-5. Focus on it. We get into a lot of interesting arguments of American English versus English, and word phrasing, and even the interesting of different viewpoints that comes through. It's been an interesting journey with him. We got into in our Tuesday discussions, we got into interesting conversations as to how Germans think about certain things in their flow. It's a different mindset.
Yeah, there are a lot of different cultural
Yep.
mindsets that impact
Yep.
everything in an organization.
Yep. Yeah. That, and we're stretching the limits of the English language, and that we don't want to invent new words, but at the same time, a lot of what we're trying to do is not adequately captured within an existing word itself. So, okay, anything else for today?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, great. I appreciate your feedback and look forward to more feedback in the future.
All right. Well, thanks for having me be a part.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.